this is my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so in this episode, Koichi gets a bit of a confidence boost, and also, finally, his stand is finally revealed. And he finally becomes a much more confident person by the end of this episode. And it's all thanks to a man named Tamami Koyabashi. So, here's the thing. Koichi was riding on his new bike that he got as a present for him starting his first year of high school. But as on his way to school, he accidentally runs over a big bag in the middle of the road. And to his horror, said bag seemingly holds a cat and is now starting to seep a red liquid. At which point Tamami introduces himself to Koichi and points out that it wasn't his fault and there was nothing he could have done because whoever put it in the middle of the road was his fault, and offers to bury the cat for some money. And when Koichi wonders what happens, Tamami starts harassing Koichi, and in the process reveals that it's actually his cat, and makes Koichi feel guilty for running over his cat. At which point, Tamami reveals himself to be a stand capable of wielding the lock. So here's how the lock works, according to Tamami. The more guilt you feel toward a person, the more powerful the lock becomes, until it gets to the point where it physically starts weighing people down. So basically, it's an automatic stand, which means fighting Tamami directly does nothing. But the lock is also very dangerous because the longer it's on a person, the more their sins become too heavy to bear. However, it's actually because Tamami actually finds out that he kind of backed himself into a corner, because around this time, Okirasu and Josuke, who have gone looking for Koichi, actually find him talking to Tamami and are curious about the situation. And upon seeing Tamami stand, realize that something is up, and Okirasu immediately begins to intervene. And sure enough, Koichi points out that he actually stole some money from him, which he did. He stole it and slipped it into his pocket, as a fee. But in case, Okirasu gets real upset at Tamami and punches him. However, Tamami actually starts stumbling and hits his head on the concrete nearby, which causes Okirasu to develop his own stand, to develop a lock of his own, which Koichi tries to explain too late. And sure enough, now Okirasu and Koichi have developed their own version of the lock, which basically means that now he's basically protected from both of them, and Okirasu can't actually intervene anymore. So, and sure enough, the lock is now going to get bigger if he gets hurt again. However, Josuke actually diffuses the situation and goes over to the so-called bag with a kitten in it, revealing that it's actually a stuffed toy that Tamami actually rigged up. So, and sure enough, he then heals Tamami's face, thereby erasing both of the locks from both Koichi and Okirasu. And panicking, Tamami actually runs away, but not before the group realizes that he stole their money. And sure enough, Koichi, after this incident, decides to go to school, and when he gets home, he's just a little bit relieved that the incident is over, only to his horror discover that Tamami is actually in his house massaging his mom's shoulders, and naturally immediately demands why he's there. And sure enough, Tamami had actually weaved up a lie that they actually had their wallets switched, and he was returning the money that Koichi dropped, quote unquote. And sure enough revealed that they had gotten swapped, and that Koichi actually had his wallet and he was there to retrieve it. And sure enough, planted a receipt to Johnny's, which he claims was there when he went to Johnny's, and that it should be in his wallet. And sure enough, Koichi pulls out the wallet, and it's revealed that there's actually a receipt in there. And Koichi tries to point out that it's not actually him and that this guy's a con artist, but by that point his mother's no longer listening and she has developed a lock of her own. And sure enough, Tamami reveals that he actually now has basically his family in hostage, because it's also revealed that he actually has his sister hostage as well. She spilled some tea on him, and now she has a lock of her own. So Koichi's family is basically being held hostage, and now Tamami is trying to extort Koichi for everything he's worth. At which point, Koichi decides to start fighting back, pushes his mom and sister out of the room while he takes care of things, and summons his stand, the little egg thing, which actually hatches to reveal that it's actually a stand named Echoes. And sure enough, Koichi starts threatening Tamami with his stand, holding him wrapping him up in Echoes' tail, and threatens to start beating up on him if he doesn't remove the locks. And when he notably refuses to back down, Koichi immediately does this, but discovers too late that his stand actually doesn't have much direct fighting potential. And Tamami stops being scared of Echoes and goes straight for Koichi, only for it to be revealed what Echoes' ability actually is. Basically, Echoes has the ability of automatopoeia, which basically means that basically what happens is it places the actual written word of the action that's been performed and sticks it on somebody's body. And sure enough, every time Tamami got hit by Echoes, it created a new sound, which then emanates from Tamami's body. And sure enough, Koichi immediately takes this into his favor and points out that if he doesn't remove the locks, that it's actually going to cause more and more problems for Tamami, and that he won't remove them. However, Tamami actually decides not to back down and instead stabs himself with a knife from the china cabinet and then throws the knife to Koichi. And sure enough, at that exact moment, his mom and sister come in, and the lock on his mom's lock starts to grow. And sure enough, Tamami reveals what actually happened, what the stand actually does if it gets way too big. Sure enough, if someone's sins gets way too big, they decide that life isn't worth living and decide to kill themselves. And in case in point, Koichi's mother decides to stab herself because she can't live with the thought of her son being basically a liar and a possible murderer. But sure enough, Koichi actually decides not to back down and instead creates a new sound, "Believe in me." And sure enough, uses this sound to actually snap his mother out of her guilt and causes the lock to go away. And when Tamami realizes he's been beaten, he begins groveling at Koichi's feet, and a much more confident Koichi basically makes Tamami his servant. And sure enough, now Tamami and Koichi have a bit of a weird dynamic, but now Tamami is playing kiss up to Koichi now, much to Oikayasu and Josuke's chagrin and confusion as he shows up, and they're completely curious at school the next day, and they're completely curious as to what happened between the two. So big thing to take away from this is that Tamami is now for quote-unquote best friends with Koichi, or at the very least he's trying to suck up. But more importantly, Koichi's developed a stand, and he's after becoming a lot more confident in himself, and sure enough, his stand now actually does a thing. So yeah, Echoes is interesting. It's not very powerful offensively because Koichi is kind of a weak-willed, and it was only this spur-of-the-moment thing which caused his stand to finally fully develop. But what it lacks in power, it makes up for in ability, because it's able to basically incapacitate somebody to the point where they're unable to move. So while it isn't very powerful offensively, it is very powerful power-wise. So yeah, Koichi developed a stand, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else it can do, because at the moment, all it really does is make sounds. That's all it does. It makes sounds. But that could be very interesting, because there's a lot of different ideas for sounds that they could potentially do. Tamami mostly experienced the sounds of punching, and then Koichi was able to put all of his will into a sound and get his mother to snap out of her guilt. But who's to say there isn't other ways that this could be utilized? That it could be very interesting going forward, seeing how they could actually utilize this ability. So yeah, but in any case, yeah, Koichi becomes a lot more confident of himself in this episode, and all it took was a guy harassing his family to actually do it and finally awaken his stand. So yeah, this episode basically just shows that Koichi, when push comes to shove, is a very threatening character in the series. He could be potentially one of the more powerful stand users, and could definitely be a threat. But the problem is that he's a bit of a shy, meek kid, and probably won't, push come to shove, won't actually summon his stand all that often unless he absolutely has to. So, yeah, I'm assuming Koichi is going to grow a little bit more because his stand isn't all that powerful, and we know that stands actually grow with people over time. So who knows what can actually happen going forward. But in any case, yeah, that's my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks. So I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check this out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!